morning. Now, I was able to say good morning to those up front, but way in the back, good morning. You're in the second week of your study and practice of our spiritual capabilities using Reverend Linda Martella Whitson's book, Divine Audacity. No, Reverend Linda does a wonderful job taking the 12 powers. This was a model, a conceptualization that Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, created to help us understand how we manifest in our human body this spiritual energy, our spiritual selves. And she goes even a bit further to break down these 12 powers, which I will name: faith, understanding, will, imagination, zeal, power, love, wisdom, strength, order, release, and life. She takes each one of these spiritual capabilities, she calls them, and breaks them down into skills or abilities that we can foster in order to bring our lives, our unique life, in greater expression on the earthly plane. I want to kind of lay out how my talk will go today. I will cover these 3 nuggets or aspects of the power. And then we, at the end of covering, which I am covering, I should tell you which one I'm covering, huh? I was assigned to cover will and imagination. Okay? I will cover imagination first, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, and then will. And then we're going to have an extended meditation time, because I want you to be able to go to that center, that power center within your body, and open up to experience it. Only the way that you can experience it. Now, Reverend Linda not only provides us with an expanded opportunity to expand our understanding about our spiritual powers, she also gives us practical ways in which we can apply them, practical ways in which we can develop them. And I like the analogy she uses in the introduction when she equates us developing our spiritual powers just like an athlete develops skills during practice so that they can perform well during an actual game. So she says this: like athletes, we engage in spiritual practice in order to saturate our minds with the truth of our spiritual capacities. We build spiritual muscles to express our divine identity effectively with increasing ease. With practice, we instinctively know what to think, say, and do to amplify our light of life, love, and all our spiritual capacities in any circumstances. And when she's talking about any circumstances, those that are comfortable to us and those that are not so comfortable to us. So I'm going to set the stage. You ready? We are God. Now, I know many of us that are brought up in traditional religion have been taught or conditioned that there is a separation. That God, for many of us, was white-haired, up in the sky somewhere, called heaven. And then we are down here, lowly human beings that were created in sin. Now, unity has always promoted oneness. That there is only one power and one presence. And that we call it God. But you know, we can also call it divine mind, creative energy, and that's my favorite. That powerful creative energy that it created our world, that flows through and is everything. also say in our second principle that we are a manifestation of that power and individualization. But you know, I'm sorry to say that even though this concept that makes us bigger than our humanness, we sometimes don't speak the language that supports that. And that's what Reverend Linda brings to light in her first book. How many of you have read How to Pray Without Talking to God? Has anyone read it? And she lays the same concept or principle in this book here, Divine Audacity. And so I want to make sure, whether you're taking the group or not, that you understand the foundation is that we are God. And she distinguished that between the God of our childhood or of our maybe previous faith with using capital G, capital O, capital D. And she really spoke to my heart because I worked very hard to operate out of that concept that we are God. Collectively, an individualization of that creative energy that has created the world. And I can feel that here among the magnificent red rocks. And that's where I experience God. That energy, that essence, that presence is when I'm in the mountains and I'm looking down over the valley and the mountains behind and all around. So we are an individualization of that creative energy. And the 12 powers is a way for us to wrap our minds around the very best we can. This power that we call God as it individualized in us. And so Linda says something that in her book, she says, the purpose of my book is to have us expand our understanding of the idea, this power, this presence of God, and to flatten spirituality. Because we talk about always being, working towards developing to express the truth of who we are. And what she's saying is, we are the truth. We are creative energy. We are God. We are being that. And that part of our experience is expressing it. I think that's the human experience, is the expression of that creative energy. And so we have these 12 powers. And so let's take a look at imagination. Now, I picked imagination first because she says this is primary. That our power of imagination is primary. It is a foundation for us to come into being and expressing all the other powers. And I love the way that she just doesn't call it imagination. She calls it to remind us of our spiritual truth. She calls it spiritual imagination. Our spiritual imagination is our power to picture what can be. Our power to picture what can be. She breaks it down into these 3 abilities: conception, vision, embodiment. Conception is our ability to form an idea. How many of you consider yourself visionaries or ideal people? The ability to form an idea is to think. To think of, and a lot of times it comes out of a challenge or a desire. Is when we can really feel or understand that we have an idea. For example, I had a difficult time picking out what I should wear. Didn't know what I should wear. And so as I was contemplating that challenge, what popped into my head was the thoughts that I should wear red because of being recorded. Yes, they say don't wear black or white. And so when the idea of the color red popped in my head, I knew immediately what I wanted to wear. And that is a red top. And then just about most things other than other clothes, we go with the red top. So I formed the idea, and then I envisioned, okay? Vision is our capacity to see or dream of what has not yet manifested, to see beyond what I already know. Okay, so for an outfit, I had the red top. And I could really actually see it in my mind, and I matched it with a skirt in my wardrobe, which I wanted to wear black. And then I envisioned it. And this is me when it comes to my dress. Now, for others, it may be an artist, okay, that has an idea in mind, okay, and then visualizes it, and then works to put it on canvas. Now, the third ability that we can foster that makes up our power of will, of imagination, is embodiment. I love this word, embodiment. Being a living expression of the qualities required for the idea to become real. Being a living expression. I don't know if you know that I'm no longer married. But yet, I have this desire to be in an intimate relationship. And my mentor, when I expressed this desire, my mentor said, well, if intimacy is what you're looking for, companionship, love, then you need to take a look at yourself first and make sure you are embodying that which you are desiring. And so my work was to be the love, to be the companion, to provide the unconditional acceptance that I am seeking from another. Now we are encouraged to practice developing our spiritual muscle of imagination. And Linda gives us several ideas in which we can exactly do this. And the one that resonated with me most, that I want to share with you, is to foster, to even understand and to build our power of imagination, is that we take a moment and either, and this is for those of you that are in the group, this is your home play. Your home play is to, if you have a challenging situation going on right now, that you take some time to quiet yourself and imagine that situation working out wonderfully. So that means that you will take in the idea that it is going to work out, and you know the details, and you know what wonderful will be when it works out. So you take that idea, okay, and then you envision it. You put clothes on it, okay. You describe it with words. It's helpful if you're a journaler to write it in your journal and describe it in as much details as you can. And then I want you to take a look at what you described. The qualities. Look for the qualities and make sure that you are embodying those qualities. Because that gives energy to bring it into manifestation. Okay, you have your homework? Your home play? I like to call it home play. All right. So let's move on to spiritual will. Oh, before we do you feel like your power of imagination has expanded even somewhat? I guarantee you, when you do your home play, you will feel it expand even more. It'll get stronger. And then if you're in a group, oh, now this is something that you can also, you don't have to do just one day. I invite you to do it until next Sunday and you get another power. How's that? So let's venture into spiritual will. Spiritual will is our power to align our being and doing with the universal idea of eternal life, infinite love, ever-present wisdom, and ever-present wisdom. Our ability to override personal needs and desires for the greater good. And you know, this is really a challenge, especially in the context, our political context, right here and now. To be able to set aside personal differences, personal needs, for the greater good. And so a poignant story is given in Reverend Linda's book, and that is about two athletes that were running a race. Okay? And I don't recall their names. If you're curious about who they were, then pick up the book and read the book. The two athletes, the first one was a good 4 or 5 stripes ahead of the second athlete, and was running towards the finish line and stopped several yards. And as the second athlete came up, the athlete realized that there was something going on. And what was told later was that the athlete geared to win, had mistaken the finish line and had thought they had already crossed it. And so clearly knowing that that athlete was the winner, the second one targeted to win came up behind the first one and nudged them forward and encouraged them to continue going towards the finish line. And they made sure that that athlete finished first, and then they finished second. That was a powerful story. And I also know the story in the Special Olympics, when there was 7 or 8 Special Olympic athletes that were running a race. And the one that was targeted to win fell down before the finish line. And this brings tears to my eyes. And as the rest caught up with that athlete, one stopped and picked them up. And they all linked arms and walked across the finish line together. And so, even though we are wired to survive, to take care of me, we have the power to override that and to be and do that which is for the greater good. So, the 2 skills or abilities that make up our power of spiritual will is choice, commitment, and willingness. Choice is to desire one possibility over another. To choose. Oftentimes we do have more than one possibility or more than one path that we can take. And so to choose means to pick one. To pick one. And then commitment comes once we choose a path. And we choose to follow that path, that we do not choose to follow another. It's commitment. So even though we may have other opportunities to come along while we're walking a particular path, that we commit to staying on that one path, no matter how inviting the other opportunities are. And then finally, we've got willingness. Willingness is the state of allowing. I love the word allowing. Allowing is welcoming an experience, comfortable or uncomfortable, and receiving its gifts. So I want to tell you a personal story. I left my church in St. Louis, Missouri in April of last year, 2016. And I decided that I was not going to return to Denver. I considered Denver my home. That I had this idea that I wanted to live in warm weather. So I decided that I was going to, for some reason, Florida spoke to me. And so I decided that instead of doing what I've always done, that is, look for a church opening and move to where the church opening was, that I was going to move where I wanted to live, and then I was going to look for an opportunity there. Now, this was really scary for me, okay, because I had always had a job before I went somewhere. So I tapped into my courage, okay. I had this idea. It was a desire, okay, because I felt like I thrived in sunshine. And so I put most of my things in storage, just put enough things in my car that I would need. Now, I'm a clothes person. I have probably 2 closets full of clothes. Now, keep in mind, there's a purpose for it because, I have my speaking clothes, I have my physical activity clothes, I have my casual clothes, and then I have my romantic clothes. So I put everything in storage out of my closet except for what fit in the suitcase. And I took my computer and printer, because I am regional treasurer, so there's things that I need. So I had a little mobile office. I put it in my car, and then I headed out. And on the way, okay, I needed to go to Michigan, and then I dropped down. I was going to drive straight down through St. Louis again, to New Orleans, and then come across the country. And I decided to have another idea, that I'd visit my family, which are in Virginia. So I headed across to Virginia and ran into Hartford. Okay. And I'm using Airbnb and finding places. You guys are familiar with Airbnb and finding places to live and being in the moment. And I had some car trouble. And I had a savings. Now, it wasn't extensive savings, but I wasn't concerned about that. I was following my dream. And so, a hunk of money went to repair the car. And then I headed down, visit my family, and then headed down to Florida. Got to Florida, and here it came. And so, I was on the East Coast, and then I had to go to the West Coast. And then I had to come back to the East Coast. And then these are the challenges I ran into. But it didn't stop me from pursuing my dream, and that was to live in warm weather. Well, I got there, and sometimes the timing of accommodations didn't work out, and there was one night I had to make a choice. Either spend $150 for a hotel room or stay in my car. And you know what I decided? Amongst all the judgment and the guilt or the shame, I chose to stay a night in my car. And it was an amazing experience because I could understand what it felt like to be homeless. And it fostered compassion for those that might be homeless. And then when I saw a person on the street pushing a buggy, I didn't have judgment for them anymore. It opened up my spiritual muscle of love and compassion. Even though it was a challenging situation for me, that was the gift. So it is important, as I tell my personal story, that we realize that we not only use one spiritual muscle, we use many of our spiritual muscles or spiritual attributes. Many of the 12. I spoke of understanding in my story. I spoke of love. I spoke of my imagination, being able to envision my trip and to clothe it with the steps. And so I encourage you this next week to to use the practice that I gave you for will. And I have one home play that I'd like to give you for, I gave you one practice for imagination. I'd like to give you another one before I close. And that is for will. And that is choose a sport when you never too seasoned in our lives to learn something new. So I'd like you to consider choosing a physical activity or a sport. And then make the commitment to learn the activity or sport. And it can be a short-term commitment, a month, it could be 3 months. And then as you learn, open up to the qualities that it takes to perform this sport as you practice. Okay? And make sure that you are embodying those qualities. And then take a look at where you are at the end of that commitment. So I've kind of run along. So I'd like for us to have a brief meditation that we're going to tap into these 2 areas, which is located in our brains. So set aside your things. Okay? Empty your laps. And I'd like some music, if I could. And your feet are flat on the floor. And then close your eyes if you're comfortable. And start taking in conscious breaths. Feeling yourself breathe in through your nose, down the back of your throat. Feel your lungs and your ribs expand. And then as you exhale, feel the lungs and ribs close in. And the breath go up the back of the throat and out your nose. And breathe in, slow and aware, opening. And exhale consciously and fully. And let go of outer concerns, for you are supported by the universal energies that create a all-powerful energies of life, love, wisdom, peace. And I want you, with your mind's eye, with the power of your imagination, bring your awareness to the very top of your head, the crown. And sometimes it's helpful to touch the area. And just notice it. That is the seat of our Christ consciousness, our divinity. And then we're taking an in breath and an out breath. We take an in breath, and when you breathe out, I want you to drop that awareness to the very center of your brain, the seat of our imagination. Between our ears and our eyes, and just rest your awareness there. Don't worry about whether you're at the right location or not. Just know that where your awareness is the right and perfect place for you. And I want you to bring to that area the color of light blue. The color of the sky, and know that that area, just like the sky, that is open and infinite. And so is our power of imagination. And sitting in that place, I want you to affirm this quietly to yourself. Repeating after me. God is imagination. I am imagination and imagining. Again, God is imagination. I am imagination and imagining. Take a deep breath in and exhale and let that truth reverberate throughout all of your beings. Every cell that makes up your physical being, embodying qualities of imagination, conception, vision, embodiment. Take another deep breath and allow your conscious awareness to go to your frontal lobe, that's the front of the brain, covered by your forehead. And just become aware of this energy center and our spiritual power and will. And imagine that area lit up with silvery light. And affirm after me. God is will. I am will and willing. God is will. I am willing. I am will and willing. And take a deep breath in and exhale, allowing the power of will to spread throughout every cell of our being, uniting all of our powers. The power of faith, the power of understanding, the power of zeal, power of power, power of love, power of wisdom, strength, order, release, and love. And in the oneness of the truth of who we are as creative divine energy, taking another deep breath and allow the truth of our oneness to be embodied in our being. And as we slowly come out of our meditation, becoming conscious of our breathing, the back of our eyelids, our bodies supported by our seats, I invite you to open your eyes and have the audacity to be your truth. Have the audacity to express the truth of who you are and the magnificence that you are as spiritual beings, given the gift to bring expression of creative energy into our world. And so it is. Amen.